is Royce's definition of fidelity, the top bullet. Fidelity is the extent to which elements that contribute to a course grade are correctly identified as academic achievement. I appreciate it's very, very close to the definition of validity, and wouldn't particularly like to argue that fidelity and validity are not really essentially the same thing. But I found it fairly convincing that Royce had something a wee bit different from validity to say. He particularly attached it to grading. So, not my paper, he persuaded me that fidelity was worthwhile in its own right, and certainly fidelity plays a part in my paper. So, I'm a fan of Royce's fidelity. Notice the middle bullet point where Royce makes a very important criticism, I think. I'll let you read the second bullet point. I think we are all terribly guilty of that. So Royce's point there is, you know, working hard and making a big effort is very nice, but it's actually not an academic achievement. He calls it an input, not an output. And I think that's quite fundamental for educators, not to confuse effort with achievement. The other point that Royce made in the same paper, I noticed that Jeff has provided a link to Royce's paper, is the final bullet point. Assessments in which early understandings are assessed, recorded and counted misrepresent the level of achievement reached at the end of the course. That's maybe quite a long-winded way of saying that continuous assessment might be unfair, because continuous assessment and rubrics invariably employ continuous assessment. Continuous assessment does not reward in any significant way the final level of knowledge and understanding. And that ultimately, you know, is every teacher's goal, isn't it? It's the final level of understanding that's important. And yet continuous assessment doesn't really reflect that. So I thought that was quite an interesting and fundamental criticism of something that we take for granted. I would also add it's probably anti-boy, anti-man, because men are notoriously lazy. Sorry for the simplistic sort of cliches, but in my experience, boys can be quite lazy during a course, and it's only when they focus on exams that they can get the finger out. So if Royce's criticism is true, that rewarding ongoing contributions is maybe not accurately summarising the final level of understanding, that may be something that does down boys. Yeah, James, good point that, you know, you can balance the assessment between the early grading and the later grading. That would help. Okay, so I thought two really, really interesting points made by Royce. One about fidelity, one criticising continuous assessment. Another thing that I have learnt recently is about the new affordances. It's a term that you guys really invented, and I won't say much. I think we're all fairly familiar with your argument, and it's a very persuasive argument that The current learning environment, the Web 2 world, provides new affordances. There's new opportunities to learn and teach and assess, and I've rehearsed some of those new affordances in the bullet points. There's opportunities now to do large-scale projects rather than silly, wee, trivial assessments. The assessments have got the potential to be much more reflective. If you think about a blog, for example, a blog is a wonderful tool to reflect on learning. We can be more cooperative and collaborative, and authenticity can be hugely improved by using Web 2 tools. That final bullet point is really, it comes from me, and I suspect it might be true that we've been so artificial in assessment for so long that we've actually forgotten what it's like to set genuine, real-life assessment tasks. And this was lifted from one of the transforming assessment papers that I came across a few months ago. It's a quote also from my paper, obviously acknowledged through this project. And I think it's self-evidently true and a real issue for educationalists. I'll let you read the quotation. I'm certainly 100% behind the point it's making. Okay, before I move on to the real body of my presentation, which is the research question and the findings, maybe this is an opportunity, Matthew, Jeff, to stop for a minute or two and to take questions or comments.
Okay, thanks, Bobby. If there's anyone there who would like to make a comment at this stage, I know you've all been commenting in the text chat, and that's great. If any of you would like to take the mic, just put your hand up, virtually by clicking the little box there, and we can see that if you'd like to make a comment. Okay, Matthew. Sorry, Bobby, did you want to follow up on that?
Yes, sure. And in fact, my findings are going to absolutely support Matthew's comment that I'm afraid that the new affordances are simply not evident at all in the rubrics that we're using. And that will be coming up very shortly.